Yay Networks.
Hello.
I love how we just
Morph
into one person.
Oh my gosh. I'm Emily.
I'm Laura.
And this is
Cheers to that shit.
I'm excited today.
Yeah.
We have a guest.
I love guests.
All right. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do.
Yeah.
I love having guests on. It's fun.
It broadens my horizons.
It's very,
deep.
Insightful.
I like learning how other people do stuff and why.
I don't. I hate
And I
learning. I'm just
know
kidding.
nobody cares about that these days, but I do.
But I do. And it's our podcast. So fuck off.
So if y'all get nothing out of it, I'm going to get educated.
And this is why we're here, for us. Okay. Have a great day. I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness.
Anything fun going on in life before we bring on? Well, I'll tell you guys, but we're having Brian from Vows and Speeches.
Yes.
He's going to be here to tell us
about Vows and Speeches. We met him at Wedding MBA.
Yes.
When we went there last, whenever that was, November.
Yeah.
And I, again, am one of those people that walks around a trade show and just must talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you do there? What's that? What's happening
Yeah.
here? And so he told me what he did, and I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
So,
and we've stayed connected, and it's been very fun. I'm very excited because this is something that I'm like, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I want to know all the details about it.
And I've been to enough weddings to know that he is a needed service.
Yes, this is
make room in your budget
absolutely
for Brian.
Required.
Yeah.
Before we bring him on, anything fun, exciting? You still have the puppies.
Oh my gosh, my puppies are 3 weeks old. They're running around. Their eyes and ears are open. They're making little puppy noises, and I'm starting to feed them puppy mush. So, which, if you don't know, it's just ground up puppy food and
water,
milk, like milk replacer, like you would give a baby. But anyway, they so cute. I can't. It's just too much cuteness.
Well, I went to a princess party with my girls.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've
like
noticed
my hair.
Yeah, my fairy hair. My oldest wanted it, and then I was like, "Well, okay, cute." And she's like, "Mommy, you get it too." Okay. And then my youngest, of course, had to get it as well.
Yeah.
And then my oldest, poor bug, she was like, woke up the next day and she only had one strand left, and I was like, "Sorry, honey."
Well, she's little and she has thin.
Well,
little,
she does. She has,
you know.
but my youngest still has like all of her. I was like, "Honey, I'm so sorry you got daddy's hair." And she's like, "It's not fair." I'm like, "I know it's not, but look how good my hair still looks." I'm just kidding.
I totally can see you saying that.
Fuck you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Enough about us.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Let's bring we'll take a super quick break. I know it was a really short intro. We're gonna get to
That's
it
all
today.
right.
We're being professional.
We got things to do.
We're gonna take a break. We'll bring Brian in, and then we're gonna get ourselves educated.
Yes, we are.
Okay, and we're back.
We are back.
We're excited. Should we bring him on?
Yes,
All
let's
right,
do
Brian, come on.
Hey.
Come on.
Hey there. How are you?
Good. I just need some better uplighting in my background. You guys there. It's great.
We had to get all set up. We can't take any credit for any of this.
No, not
except
at all.
for the wall.
That's
we
awesome.
did do the wall.
It looks great.
That's it.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
If you can give our listeners a little intro about what you do, and then we can get into the fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah, we help people write their wedding vows. We help ceremony officiants, particularly the ones that are inexperienced and internet ordained often. We help them write ceremony scripts, and of course, we help with wedding speeches and make sure that those go not just as planned, but hopefully better than planned. But definitely, our job there is also to help people do no harm and make sure it doesn't destroy the wedding.
Yeah,
I have so many questions about.
I know. Well,
speeches.
it's such an interesting work that you do, because when we met you at Wedding MBA, and it was just, I had never heard of anything like that, a speech writer or something. I mean, I knew there were speech writers, but not in our industry. So that was really intriguing to me. And what kind of intrigued me was that I just took it for granted that officiants would know what they're doing and write what needs to be written or what needs to be said. I mean, I get that couples may not, and they might come to you and need some help with that, but the whole officiant side of it, that just struck me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Well,
let's talk about that first.
Yeah.
On the ceremony side, I think when there's obviously an increasing trend of people that want to have a friend or a family member do the officiating. It's easy in most states to have that done, and to have your buddy or maybe your uncle or whatever do the ceremony. But writing 8 to 10 minutes of narrative and really getting into the weeds, it takes time, and I think it takes a little bit of skill, and a lot of people either don't have that skill or run out of time. It's a pretty big burden, and so what they do is they go online and they get something very generic, and in our mind, that's not only a lost opportunity, but it's something that everybody has heard before, and it just doesn't land the same way as if you're telling the story of the relationship and you get everybody laughing and crying and all that. So I think it's just something that helps people make it easier for their officiant to get it done and get it done the way that they want it.
Yeah, and I'm sure those people who are put in that position are probably extremely grateful, because they were probably feeling some pressure to do that. And when my niece got married, she had her uncle, stand up and be the officiant, so to speak. And I knew him, and so I thought it was going to be this really profound story about them. And he, like, you could tell he was nervous, and it was like, okay, so let's just get along to the vows. And I was just shocked. Like it was just crazy. I thought we were going to have this really cool, very, in-depth speech.
Very personalized.
Yeah, it's very personalized. It didn't turn out that way at all.
I went to a wedding. I was in it, and it was obviously one of my good friends because I was in the wedding. And she had her husband's cousin, who they are very close with, marry them, and he got ordained off the internet. And to his credit, it was really great, and he did throw in some personal touches, but it was a lot of like, you clearly went on Google, copied and pasted and put this in, and it was just kind of like, okay, it was wonderful, but it was like, it could have been more personalized. It could have been more, especially if you're not going through like a church. Like my cousin married us, but she's a minister. So she sent us like, hey, these are the ceremonies that I do, pick from A, B, and C. We can kind of customize it a little bit, but this is how I read.
Yeah.
And so even having more options in like a religious setting.
So how did you get into this, and how do you see like a trend in this type of service? Because it's really kind of cool.
Well, I'm hoping there will be a trend. That's certainly something we're working towards. I got into this because I had been working in politics for almost 2 decades, and speech writing was part of that. It was we did a lot of advertising and other kinds of communications, but speech writing and debate prep were both part of that, and training people how to talk on camera and training people how to answer questions and that sort of thing. And so, but because I was a speechwriter, and because people in my family knew that, and some of my friends, some of them asked me for help with their own maid of honor speeches or best man speeches. And I was asked to officiate at some of the weddings for friends and family. And so I got a little bit of experience in this. And as I decided about 6 years ago, I didn't want to stay in politics. It just took me about 5 years to figure out what I wanted to do and how to get it and how to get it done. And because frankly, politics is no fun anymore, and it's just not. I'm just tired. But at any rate, I started looking around. I had my own podcast for a little bit, and I interviewed a friend who did speech writing for other people outside of politics. And something just occurred to me, like, I'll look into doing something like this for weddings, because it's something you can do remotely, and it just seems like it would be fun. And so I went on Clubhouse, the app, and as some of you might recall, a lot of wedding professionals were congregating there during the pandemic because you all couldn't work the same way. And I went to a room and I raised my hand and I asked what people thought about this as wedding speeches as a business for this, and they freaked out. They loved it, and they said, hey, make sure you add custom vows and make sure you add ceremony scripts.
Mhm.
And I went on Squarespace,
Yeah.
and because I'm a writer, I'm able to do it fast. We had a designer that worked for our business. So by the end of the day, we had a website, sent it back to them. They flipped out again. And then I put some Google ads up and got a client the next day. I'm like, all right,
Wow.
there's something going on here. And it took, to be honest, it took a long time to figure out who to talk to about this and how to talk about it. And because it's such a new thing for most couples, and it was certainly a new thing for wedding planners in the wedding industry. And and I and also I was still working, so it really wasn't until 20 November of I guess 21 when we went to Wedding MBA for the first time. My wife and I, Nicole, who also co-founded this with me, and we were walking around and talking to people, and that was really the catalyst where she realized, hey man, this is something. And
yeah. I mean, I felt the same way when we met there, and I'm sure there's a lot of wedding planners out there that were probably like, yes, finally, somebody that can help with this.
Yeah, and like any startup, it takes a little while to figure it out. There are a few people that have been, I think, either writing wedding speeches or helping with vows. And there's been, you mentioned at the top, officiants sometimes help people with that, but really, it hasn't been established as a niche. And I think that's something that from an purely entrepreneurial standpoint, I really want to make this much bigger than just a couple of people on this end. So we're in the process of doing that, and we're doing really well with it. But it's been exciting because it's something new. Couples love it, and the planners love it because we make sure that the timeline doesn't get messed up. The videographers love it because it makes their editing easier, and the caterers love it because the food doesn't get cold if all the speeches are on time. And so, it's been fun. We've been having a great time with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I can imagine that, talking about like vows, I'm thinking back to my own wedding, and I love my husband, bless his heart, but he is not a verbal person. So when it came to like, hey, are we going to write our own vows, or are we just going to like have my cousin read off whatever? He was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to. He's like, I love you. And I was like, but I want to hear it. Tell me.
That kind of happened to me, not because my wife is not a good writer, but just because, I'm a writer by trade, and she just didn't feel like she could do it justice. So it didn't even come up.
Yeah. She's like, I'm not going to stand up here and be like, I love you so much. And you come out with this profound, beautiful, like speech of
she didn't want to be one
your love. And she's like, great.
And that's a big part of our clientele is, a good portion of our clientele are people that are articulate and they're creative. But the thing is, they don't feel comfortable writing, and it's hard to write about something profound and something that close to your heart. Even if you're a good writer, if you're going to struggle and possibly overthink it, and you run out of time. And so a lot of, I think that's a lot of fun.
I think people. Yeah, I think people know what they feel. They just don't know how to put it into words.
Well, that too, but also, and this is something that I struggled with and still do, is like, if there's something that means so much or it's like so personal, I'm a very private person. Like, I don't want to profess like everything that I'm doing, and I keep things very internal. My husband's the same way. So if it was just him and I sitting there and, I love you because I love you because, but it's different. And the like pressure's on when you're like, I have to say this in front of 100 people
out
like
loud.
So something so personal, it gets so hard to be able to like, I don't want to say that in front of all these people. But if you have someone like you and your wife coming in and saying, listen, maybe we don't have to say it exactly this way, but we can tweak a couple words, and the feeling, the emotion still comes off the same. I think that would help. No offense to the guys out there, but I think that would really help a lot of guys.
And I love this.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go.
Yeah, you go.
So part of what we do is the writing, but the other part is the delivery training. And that's when we actually sit down with you after there's a draft, and we work with you on the delivery and how to deliver it better. But for these very emotional, very potent moments that will possibly make you tear up and cry or something. You worry. I had a client who just didn't think that she could get through it. It was because without breaking down. But
Yeah.
the rehearsals of it, doing it with me, rehearsing it yourself, saying it enough times, takes enough of the potency out of it to where you can deliver it and not feel like this is that you're just going to fall apart. But the other side of this is that not everything that you're talking about. One of the things that we do as part of our interview process is get to like all of the things, not just about how you met and what you like about each other, but the details are some of the funniest and most affecting things. And
Yes.
it might be that first impression that you had when the person walked in, or it might be talking about some of the little ways in which they show their love, and that might be something as simple as learning your favorite songs or whatever it might be. And
Yeah.
So do you go through
easier to talk to.
Do you go through kind of like an interview process where you sort of ask some of these questions and you kind of help extract some of these things that would be unique?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. And I think
great.
that's one of the things that we've learned that we really have to explain to people, because it's not Brian writing Mary's Vows or or Brian writing this stuff out of my out of whatever I think is going to be beautiful. I'm doing generally I'll do a 45-minute to an hour-long interview where I'm getting all the stuff that might ultimately filter down to 1 to 2 minutes of vows, or 3 to 4 minutes of speeches, and or 8 to 10 minutes on the ceremony side. We do not just the couple. We interview them individually, but we also interview the ceremony officiant that knows them. So we want to get their perspective on the relationship and how they think they've changed. So this couple has changed and that sort of thing. So that info comes back to them, and it feels pretty familiar because it's things that they said or things that they've conveyed to me in some form or fashion that we put together perhaps more artfully. But it's really, the interview is really important, and it's not something that I feel comfortable doing as a questionnaire, because when you do a questionnaire, you're asking people to write, which takes time, and that's one of the reasons they're coming to you.
I was going to say, and that's why they're hiring you, because they don't want to write.
Yeah. And the other side of it is that sometimes they'll say something and I'll look at them and go, wait, tell me more about that. Like go deeper than that. And that's that secondary questioning, I think, is really where you get the fun stuff.
Yeah, I think that is such a unique service. And with couples just being busy and mostly they're both working, I think it could be a great time saver and really help make their ceremony a lot. And just all the speeches more meaningful. I wish I had done something like that.
I know, me too. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back. We'll dive more into, because I have, as we've been talking, I'm like, I need to ask about this. I need to talk about this. So we'll take a break. We'll come back and then ask some questions, and then we'll have Brian share a fun story.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, this has been fun.
I know. This is something, Brian, seriously, that I'm like, had I known about this, and I will say my cousin did everything. And so it was, and we tweaked a little bit because we're not like the most religious people, but we did want to have, a prayer, whatever. So we did tweak like some things, and the vows were great, but they are, not extremely personal. And so there have been times where I'm like, for like our anniversary, like, can you just write me a cute little letter and like tell me everything you love about me and why you love me and why you still want to be with me? So I do think that, but I want to get into what fascinates me the most is the speeches from the wedding party.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that, because I feel like when you're going in those interviews, you probably hear some really interesting things. And I know for me, I like, remember when, what was it, like the singing, like when like, I don't know, whatever you call it, where people would get a song and then they would rework the song to be about the couple. So my best friend, that's what she wanted us to do. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I do not want to do this right now. But like, that was something that she wanted. So we ended up doing, when you've interviewed any of these wedding party, like maid of honor, best man, is there something that they're like, no, I have to say this? And you're like, you really shouldn't. But they're like, no, I'm still going to.
Yeah, I had one where I've had a few moments over time where I've had to say, look, we just absolutely cannot go there. But uh, but I had one where the father was getting remarried, but the son was a best man and didn't really have a whole lot of nice things to say.
Oh,
and
Oh my
wonderful.
gosh.
and
Wonderful.
I had to be very creative. I think that was probably the one speech that took me the longest to write, because it was the
Yeah.
one that I was pulling teeth to just say, okay, can we say one nice thing? Like, what is the most redeeming quality?
Oh my
And
gosh. That
they're like,
would be a
That's
challenge.
hard. Yeah.
and there was just nothing. There was another one where I was asking. It was a father of the bride speech, and I was like, so tell me about your daughter. Is she outgoing? Oh, well, not really, not particularly. Is she particularly shy? Well, no, no. Is she funny? Well, I guess I'm not.
Like, Dad,
Sort of.
do you know about
Yeah,
your daughter? Do you know
but
your
Do
yeah,
you have anything nice to say?
I mean, like, he loved her,
Yeah, like,
but
I love her. Like,
yeah,
have you talked to
so
her
it took a
lately?
little. Yeah, and again, that's where a questionnaire, I should say, would fall flat, and so
Right.
it took a lot of probing and a little bit longer of an interview, but we got there. I've had a number of just going back to the vows. I've had a number of people that wanted to talk about their wives' butts. There was one that wanted to talk about how great their sex was, and this, that,
Oh my
and
God.
and
Like,
and
so
so you
Nana's
so you
gonna
get
be here. We can't
Saving
do
the
that.
world one speech at a time.
yeah,
That's your
yeah.
job.
I also get some of the, like, oh, no, they know this is coming, it's fine, like, this is okay, this is
Right.
going to be okay, and I'm like, are we
It
real do
doesn't
we
feel like
really know
it's gonna
that?
be okay.
Like, I know my friends, but still. And
Right.
so I have to, and that's where I think the politics experience also comes into play, because when
Yeah.
you're writing for that kind of audience, you have to be a little bit more careful. And so I'm, whether I'm conservative about it or not, it doesn't really matter. I have to
Well,
imagine
I'm
somebody.
sure all of these people think their story is hilarious.
Oh,
It's funny
yeah.
to them, so everybody
Yeah.
else is going to think it's funny. And
Yeah.
then you see the people on the side like, I can't believe
I have
they
two
just said
things to
that.
comment about this. So Ryan's best man, it was absolutely hilarious. Like, I was rolling dying because he gave this whole speech, and, like, I mean, he'd known us together since college, and he went
Yeah.
through, and, like, he had little note cards, and he was like, okay, so, he said, I can't even remember what he said exactly, but he said something along the lines of, all right, so now I'm going to go through and give you some advice. And I read somewhere that you shouldn't give advice on something you're not willing to fix. And he, like, started just throwing the note cards on the floor. And he was like, okay, so this one, and it was really funny. But then the second thing, you just made me think of something. So one of my best friends, she actually ended up getting divorced. It's not funny, kind of is now, but she ended up getting divorced. And she was like, when I get remarried, and I was like, am I going to be your maid of honor again? And she was like, of course. And I was like, great. So question, when you get remarried, can I welcome everyone back by saying, it's so good to see you all again? And she was like, oh my God, yes. And I was like, but, like, things like that, you kind of have to make sure the family,
know your audience.
the audience,
Yeah.
because if that was, I mean, that could be, I mean, not, I don't think I would ever do that, but it was just funny in that moment.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things where you saying, like, hey, I'm going to talk about your butt. It's like, maybe read the room. Like,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, and I always, like, I always ask about the tone and what people want, especially if I'm talking to the couple. But if I'm doing a wedding speech, you really have to make sure that they're sure. And sometimes I've asked them to go and check on, do you, like, if we made a joke about this, is this cool? Like, like, as you mentioned
Actually
before,
funny. Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
I did a ceremony the other day where the couple actually got married in December, but they're having the party actually this coming weekend, and so we made a couple of jokes about them already being married, and there was one joke in there about having already consummated the marriage, and you know and, but we cleared it, and it didn't, and they were like, yeah, maybe we'll just leave that one out, and that was fine, and everything's good. But you got to have that kind of communication, or you better know. And so, we hear, and I think it's for a lot of people, they've seen so many speeches on TikTok or on on YouTube or whatever, and they're wonderfully funny speeches, and sometimes they're risque, and they think of it as this is my opportunity to show that I'm really good at comedy, and I'm a great roaster. and and that may be true, but it also, if you're wrong about that and you're not really great at it, then it has the potential of being disastrous and really hurting somebody's perception of the wedding. And
especially when they get a little alcohol in them.
Yeah, but the biggest mistake, and this is, we're talking about kind of disasters, and I can list a bunch of them in a bit, but
yes,
the biggest threat to them, I think the biggest threat to the wedding is being boring. You've got this wonderful wedding that you spent all this money on, and everybody's ginned up, and hopefully the ceremony was great, and then people have a couple drinks, and they're all they're having fun, and then it's time to sit down, and then you'll have somebody that's winging it, and it goes for 15 minutes, and it doesn't really go anywhere, and just sucks all the life out of the room. And,
that is true, because I've been to some weddings like that before, where it's like, wow, now this is boring and dumb.
So you, Brian, you don't work, I guess, directly at the wedding. You're not a vendor that is there.
I'm one of the few vendors that gets to both work nationally and not there. So
So how do you?
In fact, I just went to a cousin's wedding that I wrote the ceremony for with the officiant, who is also a cousin. So I for the first time got to be at a wedding and see.
That's what I was going to ask.
And heard your speech. That's great.
Yeah, so I was so nervous.
You're like, oh my God.
You're like, that's me. I wrote that.
Do you get your feedback then, like from the wedding planner? Is that, who do you work vendor wise? Who do you work most closely with?
Well, I work with the couple, and so generally, or the speaker. So most of the time, I'm reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, how did it go?" And then we get, "Oh man, awesome!" and everybody cried or laughed, and so that's what we want to hear. And then usually, if there was a wedding planner involved in the process, I try and reach out to them and make, check our work and make sure they were happy and it went well. And
that'd be a great source of referral for you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Is from the wedding planners,
or whoever, is like. Yeah, from a business standpoint, that's what we learned very quickly, was that this was so new and so I think unusual to most people, that it takes a little bit of explanation and conversation, and that conversation is best had by the wedding professionals that are dealing with them directly, and the wedding planner or the videographer, and somebody just to say to them, listen, we've been to 1,000 weddings, and that I know you think your maid of honor or your best friend's going to put in 5 weeks worth of effort on this, but they're not. Right?
They're probably on the plane here. So
or I know that you think that you're going to spend time doing vows, but you're probably going to wait till the last week and freak out about it. So I think having those conversations and realizing, look, and you yourself have been to weddings. How were the speeches? Right? Were they always great? And I think, and the question I always tell people, and this is the way that I phrase it, is that is there anybody in your wedding party that either is afraid of public speaking, or you're afraid of what they're going to say after they have a few drinks, right? And if they
all of the above.
Yes, most people say, that's my father, that I know what he's going to get up there, he's going to talk too long, and he's going to probably say something embarrassing. And then we have an opportunity to head it off at the pass, and hopefully those will get normalized enough to where people just put it in their budget and say, hey, we can do this, make it better.
Yes. I love this service so much.
I do too.
This could go, I know this is a wedding podcast, but this could go beyond that to like anniversary parties or retirement parties.
Any kind of sentimental.
We actually get some of that. We've had a lot of our, I've had 2 clients in the last month or so hire us for non-wedding speaking engagements that they were doing just because they knew that we could help them through it. And so
awesome.
yeah, we do other stuff too, but this is our core business.
Okay, now we want to know.
Yeah,
we ask every guest that we have on, because we're all about the shitty, crazy, wild wedding stories. You have to have some. We now spill, sir.
Yeah. So these are stories that I've gotten from other wedding planners.
We're both like, yes. Choose the popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, the worst stories sometimes involve timing. So there was one so far, the record, and it's been, I think, 2 or 3 times other planners have said this number: 45-minute speech, right? Which
what?
completely. Well, one was a father that went on a 7-part outline of everything that the daughter did that was both right and embarrassing, about getting kicked in the face with a soccer ball, and then came up with a skit at the end of it involving
God.
there was you get the best man jokes, like the person that seated the groomsmen with keys and asked at some point in the speech, okay, if you've ever slept with the bride, jingle your keys, things like there's
tacky.
There's the jokes. There was a maid of honor that talked about how how the bride had some kind of relationship with her teacher in high school. So there was someone that gave away the fact that the bride was pregnant to the entire room, that wasn't disclosed to only a few people.
Oh my God! Bum bum bum.
I know, right?
There was an Indian wedding where the brother said it would have been better if the bride was the same ethnicity.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes on.
The shit that people think is funny or appropriate to say, I'm like, what?
There was how about the mother that started the entire wedding by itemizing every vendor's cost and
oh
talking
my
about the
gosh,
total cost of the wedding and how much she had left in the bank account. Right?
That sounds like something I would have done.
But yeah, there's so many of them. I mean, it's crazy. There was a guy that, thankfully, this got prevented by a wedding planning intern. But right before he was about to go on, she asked, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he had written a bunch of imaginary love letters from the groom's exes to the groom that he was going to recite. Right? So she stopped that. Yeah,
nobody
but
thinks
still.
they're as funny as themselves. You know what I mean? Everybody thinks they're the funniest person in the room, and that saying these things at a wedding is the best decision they could ever make.
And just like you said, Brian is like that. People, you view this as their chance to be like, I'm a stand-up comedian now, and it's like sometimes just being nice and like sweet.
Like, today's not your day; it's their day.
I just why?
Yeah, why? I mean, there was a one that sometimes couples do the thank you speech, and besides their vows, and the husband that got up and talked about how great in bed his wife was, and the fact various toys and so it's like, what do you? I know they think they're being like edgy, but
what do they think is going to happen?
Right. So I think just having a little bit of curation and editing might help stop these moments, from happening.
I think you should put some of those stories as testimonials to help sell your services. Like, don't be this guy. Because I'm gonna tell you, if I saw that, I'd be like, "Oh, we're hiring that guy right today."
Right
Yeah, it's a good idea. I should probably just have a page on the site of all these kind of little blurbs, and
100%.
It's fun, but the thing is people just idealize their wedding, right? They think everything's going to go, everything's going to go perfectly, and it may, it might, but
Yeah.
you also know your family, and you know your best
Yeah.
man, and you know
Well,
and you
I
know
think
your maid of
people
honor, and
underestimate all of the speeches and everything that goes into it. That they could be make or break sometimes.
Yeah.
Like even if there's nothing, questionable said, it's the length of time they go on for. It's
Yeah.
just they
That's
could
when,
really
like,
be a make or break.
That's when like a couple needs like a key, like a, I don't
Like,
know, like a
wrap it up.
password or like a look to like their DJ to be like, cut the sound.
I know.
Like, cut the mic. Like, let's just wrap it up. Like,
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we're gonna bring
like, let's
yeah,
cut the sound.
and look, if you think you're funny, right? If you think you're funny and you think you're a great writer, then it should also be able to withstand a little bit of scrutiny and editing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but I think this is really more for the people out there that are best men because they're best friends with somebody, or you're the maid of honor because you're a best friend or a sister. That does not mean that you should be expected to be a great writer or a great orator.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you've been assigned this duty, or you're a father of the bride or a mother of the groom, or mother of the bride, and you got that because you had your kid, right? Not because not because you know how to write a great speech, and that's
like you
but you want it to be a great
like,
speech.
one day I am going to write
So
this speech.
that just made me think of a question. So do couples hire you and then go to their friends and be like, okay, maid of honor friend, I've hired Brian and he's going to help you write your speech.
Yeah.
So
Well,
is that
sometimes
how
I
it
get
works, or do the
it's
various
both.
people
Yeah.
in the bridal party?
Both.
Both.
I get inquiries off the web from the people that are actually giving the speech. I get referrals by the wedding planners sometimes that will go straight to the person that's giving it and say, hey, if you need help, because sometimes they'll ask, but a lot of times it's the couple saying, hey, I know this person's going to need help, or I know they're freaked out about it, or I know them. I know
them.
Please.
I know Danny, and he's going to drink 12 bourbons, and he's going to completely go off the rails, and so hey, look, we've got this as a service. They're going to help you do this. It's going to make it easier for you, and they have a lot of fun. Everybody that does it has fun with it because you're talking about one of your favorite people. You're talking about your kid or whatever it might be, and then I do the work for you, and then we edit it until you're happy. So
you're allowing them to be themselves and say what's on their heart in a really well written way. So.
Well, thank you so much.
And ultimately, you want it to be a gift to the couple, right? I mean, if you're doing a speech for somebody, this is not about you. This is about paying tribute to them and doing it in a way that's going to make them hopefully laugh or like fall apart crying because it's so beautiful, right? Or both.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. It's not so that you can start your stand-up careers. And that's really the idea here. And don't wing it. Whatever you do, don't wing it. Right.
Don't wing it. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great advice. Well, this has been really eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to chat with you, and you could tell us a little bit about what you do. So
I'm so grateful to be here. Yeah, thank you. This is awesome. I mean, I knew from just the title. From the title, I knew this was going to be like your stuff, right?
Yes.
We get that reaction.
We try to have a good time. We try. If you could let everyone know where they can find you, your website, any social media, shout yourself out.
Sure. It's pretty simple. It's vowsandspeeches.com. Vows and Speeches on Instagram. It's Vows and Speeches. On Facebook, it's Vows and Speeches. But it's vowsandspeeches.com. You can find me. Please just reach out if you have any questions. Happy to talk to you or your wedding planner or your best friend or whoever it might be. So.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
great.
Well, thank you so much,
I know.
Brian.
Thank you so much, Brian.
It was great to see you again. This has been very enlightening, honestly.
I know. It's been awesome.
Yeah. That was great.
That was so great.
I'm like, okay, I need to go back. Remember when we talked about renewing our vows? I'm like, all right, Ryan, sit the fuck down. Brian's going to help you out. Write a fucking love letter, bitch. I want to know how much you love me. We're renewing our vows just so I can have Brian help us out here.
That was really, really, really good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I hope our, listeners will too, because I think that was some really cool stuff in there.
I think that's something
And some juicy story stuff too.
I think there's stuff that you just don't even think about people saying. And then you get up there and you're like, oh, I was worried that they would say this, but no, they would never bring it up.
Well,
and then they
yeah.
do,
And
you're
of course,
like, what the fuck?
You know, you always see that stuff on social media anyway. And it's like, oh my God, I would die if that was said in my wedding. People don't realize it actually gets said.
Yeah, it will be said. Someone's going to say it.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it.
Make sure you guys follow him. And follow us if you're not, and you're just happening to listen to us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you are. If you're watching us on YouTube,
good for you.
Good for you. Best wishes for you. No, just kidding. But seriously, follow us, like, subscribe, Cheers That Shit podcast. We're around out every Tuesday. Tell your friends.
Yeah. And if you have any speech stories that you want to tell us about, you must send those in because they never get old.
No. Oh my
never
God. They're
get
great.
old.
I love watching those videos on TikTok.
Me too.
I'm like,
yeah. So send us some content so we can make some funny TikToks.
All right, guys. Next time.
Bye.